Welcome back everybody. Yes, it has been a very long time since I've done one of these videos. For the main followers of the channel, you'll know that my main focus on the channel at the moment has been the van. However, while I'm waiting for things to be done, I thought I'd bring it back to the Mead. And today's Mead was chosen by you guys. I've been wanting to do this one for a very long time, so thank you very much. I love you all and you know who you are. Today's Mead is going to be the peanut butter and jelly Mead.
Don't forget guys, today's recipe was chosen by you. If you'd like to have a go at voting for your favourite to decide on what I make next, head on over to the Facebook page where you can cast your vote for your favourite run. And while you're there, don't forget to give it a share. Okay, so let's take a look at the peanut butter and jelly recipe we got here today. The yield is 1 gal. Obviously I'll make adjustments to this for US to UK gallons. Original gravity we're aiming for 1.106 and our final gravity to be 1.015, aiming for the ABV to be around 12%. The ingredients that we are using today is 2 grams of Lalvin K1V1116, Go Firm, Fermented O, and Wildflower Honey 3.10 pounds, raspberries 1.5 pounds, and peanuts 1 pound. Again, I will be making adjustments for this recipe for the UK gallons as we go along.
So firstly, to start us off, I am going to be weighing our honey. In the recipe book it states to use wildflower honey, which is a fancy word for nectar collected on all different types of flowers to produce the honey, obviously by the bees. What I will be using is this blossom honey, which is pretty much identical to wildflower honey. To get this recipe right, I've had to make an alteration from US gallons to UK gallons. I'll put this calculation up the top so that you can see the workings out. Originally in the recipe book it will say that you need 3.10 pounds of honey. Now to change this to the UK gallons, I will need 1.68 kilograms of honey. These tubs that I will be using, I will be taking it at by word, is that it has 1.36 kilograms in a tub. So I will be using this and then working the difference out. So to get the right amount of honey for this, I'll be using the 1 full pot as well as an additional 320 grams of honey. So let's measure it out. So we've gone over by about 3 grams there. That's nothing really to worry about. There may be a bit left in the pots afterward, even though we're going to swill them out. We're just adding a little bit more just in case we leave any behind. Now we just need to add it to our fermenter. So in the recipe book it will tell you to warm up some water on the hob and blend your honey into it that way. But I thought I'm going to do this a little bit different. Kettle. And just give it a bit of a swirl. I haven't done this in a while. Just see how that hot water is helping that honey blend in. You're going to want to shake this for a good 5 minutes or so, just to blend all that honey in and get the oxygen into our must. So just for the followers of the channel who's been here and seen me do these a few times, what are we looking for when we're getting oxygen into our must? That's right, a nice foamy head. So you just want to keep doing this until you see all that all those bubbles rise to the top. Once you're happy with this, pop it down and you can add some cooler water to it. While our must is cooling down, we can start making our yeast mix. The yeast that we are using today is K1V116. And for this we will need 2.4 grams. So let's measure it out. Unfortunately my scales don't go as small to do points, so we'll round it up to about 3. Oh there, I'm quite happy with that. Oh, there we are, we popped to 3 anyway. So what you're going to do now with your measured out yeast, you're going to just add it to 50 ml of cool water. Like that. You then just want to stir it around until you get yourself a creamy, milky like colour. So what we're doing here is we are rehydrating this yeast, as you can get liquid yeast. So all you're doing is waking up these little yeasty beasties and getting them to go to work. What we are going to do now is add some Go-Firm to our yeast. Go-Firm is just a rehydration nutrient which just helps start the yeast off right, giving us the best type of fermentation that we can get. And for this we will be adding 3 grams. So again, all you're going to do, dump it in and just give it a good old mix. While our yeast starter is resting, I took a sample of our must and put it into this drop tube using my turkey baster and cooled it down to room temperature. I did this so that we could take our gravity reading by using a hydrometer. A hydrometer is a tool used for measuring your alcohol by volume. So you take a reading at the beginning before you add your yeast to it, and then after the fermentation is done, or at the point where you want to stop the fermentation. So this gives you an accurate reading so you know how much alcohol you have made. In the book, it is recommended that the reading for the amount of sugars, or our honey, to water that we have made should be a reading of 1.106. And the reading we do have is 1.106, which I believe is the first time we have ever achieved the right amount from the book. So now all I'm going to do is take our sample and just pour it back into our must. Happy days. Now at this point you were probably wondering, hold on, I thought this was a peanut butter and jelly mead. Where's the peanuts and where's the jelly? So this mead is one that is made in several stages. So firstly you make your base mead like this one here, and we ferment this one down to the chosen alcohol, which I believe is 12%. So I need to keep an eye on our readings and stop it at that particular point. And then in the secondary stage, where we rack it into another vessel, we will then add our raspberries. And then again, once those raspberries have cleared out, we rack again on top of the peanut. Usually what I will do is I will do the making of the mead in one video and then the racking in the second video. But because this is made in separate stages, I am going to put all these stages into this one video for you. So I am going to add our yeast. Give it a quick swill around. Get that all mixed in. Add an airlock. And this is where I, personally, am going to be leaving it for the next few days until we have reached the alcohol. For you, this will only be a matter of seconds, and I'll be back. Alright, so for you, it's been a couple of seconds. For me, it's been 4 weeks. The mead that we've just made has reached the gravity aimed at in our book. In the book, it recommends 1.015. And I believe when I checked it yesterday, it was 1.012. So what I did, I added the fermentation stopper and the Camden tablets to it last night, so that it had almost half a day for everything to settle. There are still a couple of bubbles, but you'll be able to see that there's a lot of lees at the bottom, so it is doing its job. By the time that we've transferred into our secondary vessel and leave behind all this lees, the fermentation would have stopped. Just to show you guys how we do the hydrometer reading and working out our ABV, I will show you now our end hydrometer reading and calculate the ABV. Okay, so there we go, that is our end reading, which is 1.012. So to do our calculation, we take our original gravity and we subtract our new gravity, which is our final gravity. And then we multiply it by 131.25. .3%. I believe the book was aiming for 12%, so we're not far off. We're just over, if anything. So as you may have noticed, behind me I have 3 bags of raspberries which were frozen and I've defrosted. Ideally you want them mushed up, but we can do that in a second. For this particular recipe I will need 816 grams of these raspberries to add to our mead. This is where the jelly part comes in our peanut butter jelly mix. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to weigh them out and then transfer them into a mesh bag, so that when we transfer into our secondary vessel, which is going to be much larger as we're adding more volume to the liquid, the mead will be able to take all the flavours from the raspberries. These raspberries have been frozen and then defrosted, as this helps break down cellular walls in the fruit, making it easier for the flavours to come out. There's also a lot of liquid from this which I will try to incorporate with our mead, but there will be a lot of flavours in that liquid. 666, the number of the beast. So what we're going to do now is rack our mead. This simply means transferring the mead from one vessel to another vessel. We do this by using an auto siphon. So all we do is put the hard plastic end into our primary with the soft silicone tube in our secondary section. You give it a pump and it automatically will transfer one to the other. We do this by using gravity, so the key here is to have this primary one elevated. Silicone tube into our secondary vessel and our hard plastic into our primary vessel. You then a couple of pumps just to get the liquid going. There we go. Now we are transferring into our secondary vessel. What you'll be aiming to do here is leave behind the lees, which is in the last centimetre of the primary vessel. If some comes through, it's not too bad because we will be racking again later down the line. Ideally you want to leave as much of that behind as possible. All that is dead yeast and proteins. So this is what we do leave behind. All this sludgy, gloopy stuff. As I said, this is just dead yeast and proteins. So this is a cloth that I will be using. That's been sat in my sanitary liquid. It's just a thin sort of cheesecloth bag with a drawstring. I'm going to fill this up with the raspberries and then we'll just be dropping it in and leaving it. In the book it doesn't say to use a bag, it just says put the raspberries in and let it sit until the raspberries go a white colour until all the colour has been drained from them. Personally, I don't like this idea because then you've got bits floating around and it just makes racking it from that vessel into the next one a lot harder. I find it a lot easier just to keep all our fruits and things like that contained into one of these bags. That way, once we're done, we can just pull it out and dispose of it. So I'm just going to pop the bag over, like so. Give it a little bit of a pull, just so it's taut around the head. And then the front bit. So there we go, that's all in there. Wrap the cord around the head of the bag, like so, and just drop it in. One thing that is highly recommended that you do when using fruits is you add some pectolase. Pectolase is just a chemical that you add when using fruit to reduce all the haze from the proteins and things like that from the fruit. Ultimately, in the end, this just gives you a clearer mead. So the directions of use for this, I believe, is 1 teaspoon per gallon. The next stage of this mead is that we have to add our peanuts. So, once again, I will disappear and I will be back in a moment of seconds for you. Okay, so it's been about 3 weeks since we added the raspberries to our mead. I've taken the bag out and strained the bag of juices this morning, so it's had a full sort of day of rest. I did this because I'm going to be reusing the bag that I used for the raspberries for the peanuts that we're going to add to it later on. In the book that we are following, it suggests that you use 1 pound of skinless and unsalted peanuts. For the UK conversion, this equates to about 1.2 pounds or 544 grams. So that's what we're going to use. Is 544 grams of peanuts, which are deskinned and unsalted. It also says in the book that you have to roast them for about half an hour or until they are golden brown. The peanuts that I am choosing to use are these unsalted but roasted ones. Obviously deskinned as well. Hoping these will work out at the same equivalent so I don't personally have to roast them. If you are following this recipe at home and you can just find plain boring peanuts, go for it. But for this video I am going to be using these. These bags, by the way, are 250 grams each. So 2 of them will make 500 grams and I just need to get 44 grams out of another one. So let's measure it off. Weighed out my peanuts. I'm going to transfer these into a corded straining bag like what we did with the raspberries in the second part of this video. This bag then I'm going to put into a plastic fermenting bucket. It does suggest adding it to a glass carboy, But the problem I'm going to face with that is the necks on the carboys are too thin and I won't get the bag in or out afterwards. So I'm going to put them into this, and then when we rack finally into a glass carboy in the next part of this video, it will be a glass one then. Okay, so now that's all transferred into our fermenting bucket. Of course, we are not fermenting anymore. When we stopped for fermentation, I'm just using this bucket as it has a wider mouth for me to remove this bag at a later date. That later date will be in 10 days time. So this bag will sit in this mead now for 10 days with the peanuts in, of course. And then on the 10th day I will remove the bag, leave the mead in the fermentation bucket, give it a day to settle, and then a day after that we will rack into one of our glass demijohns, where it'll stay and clear out until it's time for bottling. This time around I'm quite happy just leaving our auto siphon into our bucket, as we've already racked it before and cleaned most of the sediment out of it. There will be still a little bit of the sediment at the bottom there, but the majority of it would have gone, and anything that will remain will clear out within these next couple of weeks. And that, everyone, concludes our peanut butter and jelly mead. As I said, what we'll do now is this will sit in here in the glass vessel for a good while before I decide to bottle it. Thank you everyone who's decided to come along on this journey and watch this video and watch the progress with me. I know the content's been slow recently, and I know the van build's very slow at the moment, and things like that, just everything keeps happening and slowing me down. It is coming. All this content is coming, that I promise you. It will be here. This, for example, I didn't know how I wanted to film this and set it out, whether to do them in 3 separate segments or to do one big video. As I know the content hasn't been coming, I thought I'd just do a big video full of all the best bits of making this mead, and I hope that you enjoy it. So as every time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support the channel and all the good stuff like that. And until next time, my friends, cheers.